Boughton House is a house really of two different characters. It's very Tudor in style and very intimate and cosy, but then coming secondly at the end of the 17th century, it had this huge French-style addition.
The ceiling paintings at Boughton were painted in the last decade of the 17th century and the first decade of the 18th century, approximately over a 10-year period.
In Ralph Montagu's concept of the house, he very cleverly pulls almost all of his new building together by employing the same artist to do the painting of the ceilings.
Louis Chéron, he's one of these artists totally forgotten now. No one knew who he was, what he did.
They are probably the best surviving example of an absolute master painter. It's one of the problems of painted ceilings that they're up above you, that you need to crick your neck, and therefore it's quite difficult to read them. And if I'm honest, for the first decades of my life, I was only half aware of the magic that lay within them.
There was a period in the late 17th and early 18th century, really a flowering of Baroque art in Britain, and many of those ceilings did suffer from the losses and redecoration because of changes in fashion, basically, and they were seen as old-fashioned. Boughton was very fortunate in being left alone. One of the challenges of mural painting in Britain is, of course, the climate. The salts were starting to seep through the pigment. The varnish had yellowed to a great degree. There was an enormous amount of historical dirt and grime. And had we not arrested that, then it would simply have gotten worse, and the remedial work would have been a much bigger task in the end.
We decided roughly 10 years ago that it was really critical that we addressed all the ceilings, all the 9 painted ceilings, as a single project. And a great deal of effort went into researching who might be the best people to undertake this work.
My name's Mark Perry. I'm director of the Perry Lithgow Partnership Limited. We started the Boughton project in 2018 and have been working our way gradually through the 9 painted ceilings. All the ceilings have had much similar problems. I suppose really the biggest problem is removing the surface coatings, because different coatings require different solvents. We carry out a lot of trials beforehand using different mixtures of solvents to make sure that we get the right blend that will remove the coatings without affecting the paint underneath. So we work through those and remove those. They're usually quite dark and discoloured, concealing a lot of the original paint and the full vibrancy of the colours.
We also wanted the ceilings to be shown in the way in which they were intended, and for those old varnishes to be removed and for us to see the original colourings.
I think when we began this whole thing, we were driven by anxiety that paint was flaking off, that there were cracks appearing. I think what we didn't anticipate was quite how magical and glorious they would be once the layers of grime and varnish was removed. Here we have an artist of enormous gifts, of great precision, of the ability to blend and mix mythological scenes to create political ideas as well. For me, Louis Chéron is going to be one of the most important names associated with Boughton House.
Louis Chéron was born into a family of Protestant artists. This is crucial regarding the rest of his career. We know that his father was a miniaturist, very small portraits. When Louis Chéron was still a kid, 10 years old, his father fled, left the family with, according to testimonies, with considerable debt. And it was thanks to Louis Chéron's sister, who was both a painter, a musician and a poetess, that Elisabeth Sophie Chéron was able to support the family. So any students who was gifted at the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture was able to go to Rome. So he's known to have worked there, studied there. Something unusual with him is that he received a commission from the Church of San Pantaleone in Venice. And at this time, I mean, you know too well that there were so many artists in Venice that didn't need any foreign artists to work or to receive a commission. And his painting, a large altarpiece, is still there in the Church of San Pantaleone. When Louis Chéron comes back in Paris, in 1685, he's fortunate to get commissions for a church as famous as Notre Dame. He paints two monumental mazes, kind of votive paintings that were offered every year by the Corporation of Goldsmiths. We know that the Révocation de l'Édit de Nantes happened the following year in 1685. In other words, it was no longer possible to remain in the French kingdom and be a Protestant. So you had then two solutions. Either you would abjure, you go to a church, you meet a priest, you say, I no longer be a Protestant, or you leave the country. And this is exactly what he decided to do later on. But it wasn't that easy.
We're now on the Great Hall, having done previous 7 ceilings. The Great Hall is, by its nature, the biggest ceiling that we've had to deal with. This ceiling is about 180 metres square, which is roughly 4 times the size of most of the other ceilings. So we have 10 of us in total. We have to have a big team, otherwise we'd be here for even longer than we are here already. The initial process is to carry out a photographic survey, take ultraviolet photographs of the entire area and mosaic those together, and this gives us an idea of the amount of retouching, particularly because that fluoresces more than the original paint, so we can identify exactly what the extent of the repainting is and therefore how much work is going to be involved. And then really we then get stuck into the actual conservation. Essentially the first process is to remove any loose particulate dirt, which is just brushed off with soft brushes and so on. And then we remove the surface coatings, of which on the Great Hall ceiling there are at least 3 different coatings. The next stage after that is really to attach all the loose areas of flaking paint, which are done with sort of spot fixing with an adhesive, and then we iron those with a heated spatula to reattach them to make sure they're fully bonded. And then we deal with loose plaster, of which there's quite a lot. We stabilise the plaster through grouting and repairs. Once everything's stable, we then do the final repairs and put a fine skin plaster on, and then we carry out the retouching process, and we apply a final varnish as well. The other main area really of difference and challenge is the upper east wall. Historically, there's been an awful lot of water damage through holes in the roof, a huge amount of paint loss, particularly on the north side of the east wall, where virtually the entire original paint layer has been lost. The first job we had there was to make sure everything was secure before we could even consider cleaning.
What we've done with the east wall is that we've removed the old varnish, we've removed the overpaint that had been applied. If we are quite honest, it had been applied quite crudely in the 1950s, and it was inappropriate, and it didn't relate to either the original scheme, as we believe it to have been, or to the other murals in that room.
Hello. There's a big crowd coming up to see you this morning. Over the course of the centuries, several different conservators have worked on this, and we're almost going back to trying to reimagine what it might have been like. Is that correct?
Exactly. I think there have been, as you say, several attempts. What we see now is a 1930s recreation. I think the attempt was to recreate a Puto, but it's out of proportion. We're not quite sure what he's doing. There's no basis, as far as we can see, for that particular representation. So what we're trying to do, as you say, is to be influenced more by what Chéron was trying to achieve originally, what we see around us, examples on other ceilings.
This one should be original, and as Mark said, this has a total new edition. I'm not entirely sure that this figure, the so-called Minerva, above the arms, is by Chéron. I can't see anything of him. And even this would look strange to me, a kind of isolated foot like this behind an arm would be, to me, a kind of mistake at this very time.
This stage, it's in drawing form, but we're just about to start transferring those drawings onto the walls and then building up the paint layers to recreate something that's going to be a bit more in keeping with what Chéron would have intended.
We've decided that, yes, we are going to go ahead and repaint in a fully reversible way elements of that scheme. We can deduct from the opposite wall, if you like, what would have been there, and from what's left of the outlines of the figures and the elements that do remain, we can work out what would have been the original design to that wall.
The way of working is I trace off and then I start drawing, and on this one I've put in where I think her legs would be sitting. So under here there's a shadow of her leg, and once I've got her torso sort of in the right place, or what looks comfy, then I start putting in the drapery that's missing. Now, some bits of it are still there, so they're really important. These shapes here, and to get this kind of drapery, I look at what all the other ceilings, we've got so many reference pieces. Chéron has a particular way of depicting the drapery. It's, developed over a few 10 days maybe, this whole set of drawings. The Puto, on the other hand, was a different challenge. So we had to work out what he might be doing, and so Mark and myself had lots of discussions about where he should be. And I started off by tracing the two putti on the west wall. So this is my tracing of one of them. I reversed the head so I could have him looking a different way, but used him as a reference for the size of the figure. I also experimented with this little Puto that was in the state bedroom. He is a much chubbier Puto, and so he wasn't the right proportion. So we experimented with different things and came up with the dividers, which there are references in various images that we looked at. And so it looks like he is doing something. He has intent to aid the sculptress, but the drawing there is the final little Puto that hopefully will be used. But when that gets put on the wall, we will look at it again, and if it needs any adjustments, we'll adjust it.
Interestingly, there is a body of work, of designs by Chéron, which we've used to inform the drawings and which will continue to inform. It's not a clean-cut decision, it will be an evolution, and it's very much an informed process.
Cheryl's sister Elizabeth, she was very talented and effectively supported herself, their mother.
And she was even able to support financially her younger brother Louis during the time he was in Italy. And apparently it was thanks to her salon, a kind of a place where she would gather connoisseurs, artists, patrons. And it was thanks to these meetings that she learned about the Duke of Montagu, who was looking for an artist. Louis Chéron must have learned it, would have been an ideal opportunity. Go to the English kingdom and work here for the Duke of Montagu. And this is exactly what happened. In the case of Louis Chéron, working for the Duke of Montagu became an opportunity to flee, leave the French kingdom and never come back. We have to bear in mind that Chéron's family was punished. It was totally illegal. You can't flee the country like this without a permission. So this was Louis Chéron starting right after 1693. And then very quickly, shortly afterwards, he's asked to decorate Boughton House. So this will last many, many years. Thanks to these commissions, thanks to the patronage of the Duke of Montagu, Louis Chéron was able to lead a very brilliant career, being asked by, for instance, the Duke of Devonshire to decorate Chatsworth, to be hired by Lord Burleigh to decorate Burleigh House. Finally, the publishers asked Louis Chéron to do many book illustrations, print designs, tried to make it account more than 300 print designs, that's a lot. The crowning period of Louis Chéron's career came in 1720 when he created his own academy, the Academy of St. Martin's Lane, right near the Church of St. Martin in the Field, right near today's National Gallery, Trafalgar Square. And apparently we know, according to testimonies, that when Louis Chéron died, his body was exposed in the church of Covent Garden. If I'm mentioning this, it's because Raphael, when he died, had similar honors. So probably one of the most praised artists in England.
We are now on the very last day of a very long and enjoyable project. We've learnt quite a lot from working through the various ceilings about techniques from previous restorations. Each ceiling has had its own kind of idiosyncrasies and problems for us to solve. This ceiling was no exception to that. We've found remains of earlier varnish that we weren't aware of. Only some areas were varnished. There were large sections of the ceiling, particularly in the sky, that were never varnished, which was the first time that we found that on all the ceilings. Thinking about how Baroque paintings were in fact completed, they weren't varnished when they were finished. They didn't worry about things like protection like we do now.
Well, I mean, you know, it's always a challenge actually, because I've never painted something quite like this. There's a process by which one does it, so which is looking at all the references you've got. I spent a long time sort of adjusting hands, position of legs, etc. When I was painting it, it was always standing back, having a look, does it look right, adjusting a little brush stroke, but also really making it join up with the original. So it should look like, you know, it shouldn't jump out at you, it should fit in with everything else, but I think when you're close up to it, you would see it's been recreated. On the right-hand top corner, that's the original corner, so we knew there was something there. We thought there should be something on it, because it gives it sort of weight. So then there was much discussion about what should be put on it, and it's one of the mottos of the family. And at the bottom there is a very, in small lettering in Latin, that it's been restored in 2025.
I mean, we're very excited about seeing this one because the whole concept of the ceiling is that it's day being introduced by Apollo in his chariot, and at the far end of the ceiling is a big black area which is supposed to be night depicted as a curtain with cherubs pulling the curtain back. So it relies very much on this light and dark opposition, which was a bit muted before, certainly from seeing it from the ground, because of the dirt and the discoloured varnish. The colours will all be saturated much more, they'll be much more vivid, and you'll get much more of that idea of the difference between the light and the dark ends of the ceiling.
It's a hugely invasive process that we've gone through. We've had, I think, 7 years of this conservation project to date. It means that the house, for periods, and certainly sections of the house, can't be used for extended periods of time. And it's a huge amount of work for the team at the house, who in places have had to place Tyvek and panelling and box up items to protect them. And then, of course, once the project is complete and the scaffolding comes down, which in itself is a risk, of course, the room has to be put back together again as it was.
It's not just about making something look kind of pretty and lovely and clean again, it's about preserving things for future generations. It's why we apply varnishes and things like that, so that they're easier to clean in future.
We're perhaps just at the beginning of the story, a very important first step. It's been fundamental that we get them in good condition so that future generations can enjoy them. But I think that the learning about them is ahead of us.
So one of the problems that we have is that most paintings made by Louis Chéron in residences or country houses, almost everything has disappeared. So we are fortunate to have the decoration here in Boughton House, I would say almost intact. That's a miracle.
I mean, this series of paintings, this whole conservation project has been really important because I think Louis Chéron was a very, very underrated and unknown artist. There are 9 ceilings painted by Chéron, and on this sort of scale, there is really nothing. And hopefully, if we've played a part in kind of remaking his kind of name, then it's something to be proud of, I think.
It remains one of the most important examples of British mural painting, if you like, extant, and is certainly by far the most important and unique, really, example of this particular artist's work.
Every time I look up now, I know that Louis Chéron himself is portrayed in several of them, and I see his smiling face. I think how wonderful you'll be smiling from wherever you are now at what's being done to restore your masterpiece.